So I want to ask you about COVID.
Okay.
What would you say is the impact of COVID on yourself as a yoga teacher, or on people's interest in yoga? Has it changed anything?
Well, yoga, it's almost a cliche during COVID, wasn't it? That everybody started doing yoga online.
And Jo works and making banana bread.
Yeah. And so I went online during COVID. I actually already had an online thing, but so it was really easy for me to go online because I already had a platform already ready to go. But when I had tried to do it in 2018, it had fallen flat on its face.
Oh, yeah.
And interestingly, I almost actually wrote a big thing. I almost wrote a blog article about it being my biggest failure.
Oh, interesting.
So what was it? I think it might have been a podcast or something. Someone was doing one about failures, and I was thinking, what would I say? And I would have said that if you'd asked me, I would have said that my online community was my biggest failure. Because I had put so much work into it. I was convinced it was going to be a success. I told everyone about it.
Oh, yeah.
I had people signed up, and then it fell flat on its face. Well, it didn't fall flat on its face. That's really not fair. I had that self-saboteur thing where I just couldn't make myself do it, and then I just stopped doing it. And I was really embarrassed by it. And then obviously when COVID happened, I was like, I've got that online platform. I'm just going to do that straight away. And I got a lot of people signing up to doing it online within those first couple of weeks. And it was great. And I really, really liked doing the online stuff. I really liked it. And it's still going strong. What's happened is that I think it's really divided people. I think that there are people who love doing the online stuff, and they'll stay doing the online stuff forever because they love it. And then there's the people who hated the online stuff and were the first people back in the studio when the studio reopened.
Interesting.
But I look back on that time now, and I don't. So as a teacher, I'm really selfish because I do what I need.
Yeah.
And I think my best teaching and my best classes is when I'm not pushing against the tide. And I really needed that online community. Like, if I look back, like, it was a blur, isn't it? Like, you think back,
yeah, totally.
and you're just like, what? Like, it doesn't feel like I was in lockdown that long now. But then I'm like, it was a really, really long time. We didn't see our family, we didn't see our friends, we had loved ones die, couldn't go and see them at the end, like, really intense. And we were talking about this earlier with someone, and exactly when we were talking about them not realising that they were stressed, and I was like, but right at the beginning of COVID, we didn't know how many people were going to die. Like, we were hearing things come out of China that, like, it had an 80% death rate. Like, we thought bodies were going to be piled up on the streets. We thought everyone we loved was going to, like, we genuinely thought, like, there was going to be no food. There was going to be...
Oh, yeah. I remember, like, flour.
Uh-huh.
Flour and toilet roll and pasta.
They were saying we're gonna take the centre for life and we're going to make it into a morgue. Like, it was really, really frightening. And I don't think that, because we've just kind of come out of lockdown and gone, and we're back to normal. But, like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck? And in that time, I taught 6 classes a week online. And I set up, like, a lot of, I was also doing one-on-ones, and I was doing my own yoga. I had to so I do a yoga teacher training course, and I had to move that. I'm getting an eye twitch thinking about it. I had to put that online. Mm-hmm. So I had to create a yoga teacher training course that I had been writing for 2 years. I had to pivot it and put it online. So it was, but I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't had that productivity to do. So that community, it sounds really trite to say it, but that community really did save my life. Like, I think that having those people, having that routine, having those people, knowing that there was going to be people that I was going to be seeing, that, yeah, it might have been over Zoom, but we had the really lovely check-ins at the beginning of every class. And we formed really strong friendships.
Yeah.
And it saved my life because I couldn't get really pissed because I had to be up in the morning. Like, I couldn't, very easily I could have lost all the structure in my life and it just become a blob of, like, because I need structure and I'm not good at it.
Yeah.
So but I need it. And that created a structure for me, and I think it did the same for other people as well. Well, I know it did. And that's, like, I don't think I can overemphasize how important I think that was at the time for me, but also for the other people who were part of it. And now we're on the other side of it. There are still people who are in that community, but there's also people who I can completely understand that they're like, I never want to do yoga again.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah, because that was
It was a lockdown thing.
It was a lockdown thing. So it was a thing where they did during a time of trauma.
Yeah.
And now they're like, well, I don't ever want to do that again because that reminds me of that time. And I think that that's completely valid and fair enough. Go find something else. I don't know why I always say go do Zumba, but go do Zumba. Like,
well, I discovered Zumba online.
It's really good fun.
Yeah. And one of the things that's so lovely about it is I do a Zumba class on Zoom, and I did the first class and I thought, because, like, the only time I'd ever done it before was in a church hall with my mum, and I was like, it's not the same, my mum's not here.
Oh.
But it's online, so it doesn't matter. So she's in Liverpool.
Oh,
I'm in Newcastle and we're Zumbaing together. It's great.
That's really nice. And I think that is when we look at intention and, like, well, why do people do yoga? It's often a sense of community as well, and social. There's a really big social aspect of it, and I think that is like that's not a byproduct of it. It is a byproduct, but it's not a sideline. That is the It's just as important as everything else, and I think COVID, it was mad. Like, we didn't see our parents, we didn't see our loved ones.
But in the isolation, I think we all realised how important connection is. And actually, I think in some ways we got more genuine connection.
Yeah.
So rather than kind of, being in a room together and, like, looking at your phone whilst having a conversation and kind of not really paying each other attention, if you're on a Zoom call, you are having to pay attention to the person that you're with.
Yeah, that's true.
And I've quite appreciated that.
I actually like Zoom. I really like Zoom, and I think it's because I actually find I'm really gregarious and I love people, but I find it exhausting.
Yeah.
So what I like about Zoom is you can get it and then you can just turn and then you're home.
Yeah.
And I don't think that those connections are less. I just think they're different.
I totally agree. And I found coming out of lockdown harder than going into lockdown for pretty much that reason. Yeah. I've got so overstimulated.
Yeah.
Having, like, lots of different people with, without sounding too much like a hippie, different energies in the room together. It's like, oh, I need to go home and have a lie down.
Absolutely. And I think that I've had to really strip what I do back. So originally I was like, well, I'm just going to go back to my pre-lockdown timetable. And there's just no way I could do that. Yeah. There's just no way. And I think that that's probably a good thing because maybe I was just doing too much before anyway. Yeah. But I do find social things really exhausting. So I have appreciated Zoom, and I think that will continue. Like, we have a little group and it's lovely, and, like, I now can do both. Yeah. Which is lovely. It's really, really nice. The studio, I was so frightened to come back to the studio because I just didn't know how it was going to be. But it's just the same as before. Yeah. it was amazing how quickly it just became the same.
Normal. Yeah.
But I think overall, COVID's been good for yoga. Because I think that it definitely made it completely mainstream.
Yeah.
And I think people are I think there is a real awareness of looking after your mental health.
Definitely.
But I think there also needs to be awareness that it doesn't have to be yoga.
Yeah.
You can do something else. Which is such a terrible thing for you. I'm the worst marketer of my own stuff. Because I'm always telling people, do something else. Just do something else.
But I trust someone who says that rather than someone who says, I will cure everything.
I won't cure anything. Yeah. But I think it's because I also know that like yoga isn't all. So my husband said to me the other day, I went to a yoga class taught by someone else, and I came back and he said, what have you been up to? And I said, oh, I've went and done yoga. And he went, do you not get sick of yoga? And I was like, well, I would bloody hope not, because my life would be pretty miserable if I was sick of yoga. But because I've committed to it, there is definitely times when my yoga practice needs to be something else. But because but I think you get a little bit further along the journey. I think you're probably the same with your meditation, where your meditation doesn't need to look a certain way.
Yeah, and sometimes you do go, sometimes I find myself going, why do I meditate? I do it because it's my job.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'll find myself going, I'm not going to do the kind of meditations that I teach. I'm going to do something slightly different. And then sometimes I'll have days off. And then sometimes I'll be like, oh, I really want to meditate. Yeah. And I think that's okay, and it'll change over time.
But it's having a relationship that you're committed to, isn't it?
Yeah.
That you feel differently about it, but it's just always going to be in your life. So you have.
Not really an expert on that one, but I'll take your word for it.
I just realised I said that. That's not how I feel about my husband. Like it's just always in my life.
Whether you like it or not.
But there is, when you have something that's in your life, you can take it for granted a little bit, and sometimes you can go off and do other things. And I think that and this is something that I often say to people who want to become yoga teachers. So because I do a yoga again, worst marketing of my course ever, because I get a lot of people who want to become yoga teachers because they see being a yoga teacher is a way of just being able to do yoga all of the time. And sometimes I say to people, well, if you love yoga, maybe don't make it your job.
Yeah.
Because if you need to pay your mortgage with it, that's going to be the first thing that's going to suck the love out of it. And I think that becoming a yoga teacher is a little bit like marrying your partner, in that you have to keep the spark alive. So you have to make it interesting for yourself.
Although I found that with meditation, learning to teach it made my meditation practice stronger.
Oh yeah, I think there's a really strong thing for doing the teacher training for your own practice.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Almost like at that point I didn't think I was worthy of doing it for myself.
Yeah.
But when I thought, well, I need to have this practice for others.
Yeah.
It was self-care by the back door.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that but I don't think I think you'd be a fool to get into teaching yoga for a job to make money.
Mm-hmm.
If that's your if that's your, that I can become a yoga teacher and then I can make loads of money just doing yoga. And you're like, that's not really what being a yoga teacher is, because you've got to also market yourself.
Yeah.
You've got to, and I think that people don't see that element as much. But there is absolutely, and lots of people do the course just because they want to know more about yoga and they want it. And I think that's brilliant. And also lots of people have done the course and gone on to be really good teachers as well. But if you're just looking at it and thinking, it's a bit more complicated than that.
So, is there anything else that you would like the listeners to know about?
I think I've probably said enough. I don't think there's another thought in my head. I could talk forever, but I won't. No, it's just something that I want it's just something that I want the listeners to know. There are loads of different teachers. Mm-hmm. There's loads of different yoga teachers. If you've been to a yoga class and you haven't liked it, don't let that put you off yoga as a whole, because if you're not at the place, if you went to a gym and you thought it was too loud, there'll be a teacher that's quiet and lovely for you. If you went to a quiet teacher and you didn't like it, there's loads of different teachers. So go and try them all out, because I'm sure you'll find one that you like. Or maybe you just don't like yoga.
And then it's Zumba.
And then it's Zumba. And that's
cool. They're the only two options.
They're the only two options.
Excellent. So thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Rachel. It's been a pleasure.